Hey everyone, it's Ryder from Skip. I hope you're doing well. It's Tuesday, May 31st. Hope you had a great long weekend. Happy kickoff to the summer. Important update today. First, a new report from the SBA talks about the EIDL and PPP programs and some new recommendations. This is from the Inspector General, which includes reports of new arrests. I'll share a couple of those examples. What's the latest crazy fraud story related to these programs? Plus some recommendations on how the SBA can try to get more funding back when fraud was committed. That'll have an impact on all of you watching that are still looking for funding. And finally, I'm going to talk about the new EIDL, as I like to call it, which is the SBA 7A program. There's been so much interest in this program since the EIDL program ended. I want to briefly give an update there if you still need funding. This should help you, especially if you're trying to decide what to do. These are some things to keep in mind. The SBA 7A program, what's required, what documents do you need to collect, what you can expect in the process, and of course, how a team like us can help you navigate from beginning to end. As always, thanks for subscribing, turning on the alerts, and hitting the like button. Thanks to all the new subscribers last week. By the way, I would love to know where you're watching from, especially today as we kick off the summer and we look at the map of temperatures today. Heat waves across the East Coast, much of the Midwest. As always, we love hearing where you're watching from, and see if you can spot your city and state in the comments. So before I bring up the SBA report, I'll just talk about the 7A program. You know, we continue to help hundreds of new businesses every single week. Think about other non-EIDL options. 7A has been the most popular one. If you need help, use the link in the description. You'll get priority access. We have some VIP spots. Or you can go to SBAVIP.com. The reason for this, you will see today our brand new funding tracker. So any funding that you're going after on your own or that we're helping you with, you can now track on the Skip dashboard here. Add past funding, view your ledger, and see new opportunities. I'm going to say more about this feature soon, but if you're on your Skip dashboard today, you'll see this for the first time. So on 7A, a couple tips for you to consider. Of course, the more established a business you are, the better chances you have. But when in doubt, it's good to talk with someone on our team, and we will be blunt with you if we think you have a shot and it's worth compiling a lot of information for the 7A. Lenders, these are the SBA approved lenders who give out money. $350K and $500K are the sweet spots. Those are the limits we typically help people with. One of the things we'll want to know early on is your business revenue. We'll want to take a look at your past tax returns from 2021 and 2020 if you have them, plus 6 months of bank statements. We'll then evaluate that and say, yeah, it looks good, let's continue. Then we'll typically want to see a profit and loss statement year to date to see where you're at today. Yes, most lenders will want to see that you're cash flow positive, but just like with the EIDL, add backs are a possibility. So even if you have a negative profit, you may be able to do add backs. Then it's a matter of preparing all those documents, a handful of other SBA specific forms, getting that to the best lender for you. There's a handful of lenders that we recommend and we know how they work, how quickly they can typically turn things around. And then they'll get your packet of information to the SBA for final approval, and eventually the money will be in your business bank account. So that's the 7A program. Again, if you're looking for funding now, you're looking ahead at the looming recession and trying to weigh your options, that's just another option for you, in addition to grants that we can help you with. Here's the latest report that came out last week from Hannibal Mike Ware. SBA has expended more than $1 trillion in lending authority and entrepreneurial assistance in the wake of the pandemic. More than $1 trillion direct funding, funding through third parties such as the PPP or the 7A, and entrepreneurial assistance, a lot of the resources they put into nonprofits and other local organizations. By the way, I'd love to hear in the comments, have you utilized any local SBA resources, or maybe you've just been watching our channel to stay up to date. Okay, on the fraud front, 366 indictments and 142 convictions have now occurred from the PPP and EIDL programs. This has been a huge effort from this office, the Inspector General. Here's why in red. It was immediately clear that pandemic relief efforts had drawn the attention of unscrupulous and greedy criminals, and a lot of this greediness has affected you. You couldn't get approved in time, or they ran out of EIDL grants. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Here it is. This report found that the SBA provided $4.5 billion more in EIDL grants to sole proprietors and independent contractors than they were entitled to receive based on the SBA's established policy. For example, they determined that over 500,000 sole proprietors applied for the grants without an EIN and claimed more than one employee on their application. If you have more than one employee, you'll need to have an EIN. And that was a major problem in the early days of the grant program, allowing people to put down 2 employees, 3 employees, maybe 10 employees. Without the checks in place, a sole proprietor could have gotten $10,000 grant instead of the $1,000. Of course, a lot of you who have been watching believe that the SBA should have given $10K to everyone. But I've also heard many of you say, look, $1,000 is better than nothing. Many of you didn't receive any grants because the funding ran out. And if that's the case, this $4.5 billion over disbursement was probably the reason. Finally, another big whopper from the report, the SBA awarded $18.6 million for the informational and training hub in the critical first year of the disaster response. But according to this, is basically a failure. After launch, less than 1% of the 30 million small businesses it was intended to help used it. And on this channel alone, our YouTube channel, we've accessed more than 1% of those 30 million small businesses. I think we've had around 12 million views over the past 2 years. The second part of this, only 62 of about 14,000 resource partner counselors and mentors completed any of the training modules. That's a huge failure. 62 of the 14,000 resource partners whose job it was to be trained by the SBA and then train other people. Basically, nothing happened there, which does show a gap a lot of the times between intent and reality. How do you reach people the most? Well, we know, of course, many of you have been tuning in here to our channel, to other similar channels to try to get information, how-tos, what's the latest news, and not necessarily going through resource partners because you just didn't know about them. So no, we haven't seen any of that 18.6 million for these informational videos, but we're overjoyed that we've been able to help so many of you get funding. I mean, almost $2 billion alone in EIDL funding. We've helped people get directly. Indirectly, who knows? A lot of people watching these videos we've never had the pleasure to talk to. Finally, to wrap on this report, I'll leave the link below. It's 58 pages. Yes, I read it all over the long weekend. Many more fraud cases and convictions, including this one in LA. They were sentenced to a multi-million-dollar scheme. They had 150 PPP and EIDL applications, obtaining more than 20 million in pandemic economic relief funds. An Oakland woman, I talked about this a couple months ago, was convicted of PPP and EIDL fraud. A Texas man, another California man, and a bunch of others across the U.S. And finally, in the report, there's a shout out to the 7A program. The Section 7A loan program is SBA's principal vehicle for providing small businesses with access to credit that cannot be obtained elsewhere. So if you're ready to pivot towards the 7A or at least explore your new options, we would love to talk to you. SBAVIP.com or use the link below. For those of you using the Skip Dash, would love to hear your thoughts on the funding tracker. I'll be going over this in detail in tomorrow's video, plus more grants coming out this week. We've got more $1,000 grants and so much more. Most importantly, thanks for tuning in. Wherever you are, hope you're staying cool, stay well, stay healthy, and I'll see you tomorrow.